Hello and Namaste Janta. Welcome to another episode of Good Old Days. Today we are talking to Aneesh Reddy, CEO and co-founder of Capillary Technologies. Anish is a Forbes 40 under 40 leader and his company Capillary Technologies is a red herring 2012 Global 100 company. Capillary has a very special place in my heart because my first job was with Capillary Technologies, and the culture you get there you will not get anywhere else, and the bond you build there are for lifetime. Hi Anish, very warm welcome and like happy to see you. I have seen you in Capillary's tech town halls, and you have always been so enthusiastic and passionate and trying to be transparent as much as you can, and it's clearly visible in Capillary's culture. And thank you for taking out some time for us.
Yeah, I didn't know you were a captain as well. So
Yes,
yeah, so
Dil se.
so I hope you had a great time when you were with us. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so, Anish, you are a true role model for most of the students at IIT Kharagpur because you have, in some way, kick-started the startup culture over there. And like many of us have been closely following your journey. It's almost 13 years now since you co-founded Capillary. So now, if you are given an opportunity to go back in time, will you still do the same thing? Will you choose the path of entrepreneurship, or will you stick to some corporate life, or maybe some other profession?
I think Neha, over the last 15 years out of KGP, and the last 13 years of running Capillary, I do believe that life happens to you, you know, and I'm very grateful that I've been able to have this journey over the last 15 years, right? Whether it was the first 2 years at, if not 15 years, even the last whatever 37 years of journey, right? So whether it was the time I spent at Kharagpur, or whether it was the 2 years at ITC, or whether it was running Capillary, uh, and yeah, no regrets. I would very much, if I went back, I would let life drive things again. Yeah.
Okay, yes. Okay, so Anish, you come from Hyderabad, from a family with a medical background. So you were a black sheep. You chose to become an engineer. So tell us something about your family background and from Hyderabad to KGP, a very small village. How was your initial experience at IIT Kharagpur?
Yeah. So I come from a family of doctors. Both my parents are doctors, and brother, sister-in-law are both doctors as well. So yeah, so it was actually my dad who, I think in my 10th grade, when you're a doctor's son, you also want to be a doctor, right? That's how we are all brought up. So I think very early, I think my 10th, my dad walked up to me and said, "Look, I don't think you have as much patience that a doctor requires. So probably you should try engineering out, right?" So that's how the whole IIT thing and all that started. But otherwise, Hyderabad was, uh, uh, parents are reasonably well-to-do. I never had to think about anything really, right? So fairly spoiled kid. I would back in the 90s, right? I mean, I went to Kharagpur in 2002. Every second day I would order a pizza home and all that stuff, right? So this was, so that was kind of lifestyle, right? So very, really metro born, metro bred, type kid, and pretty much had everything, right? So when I went to Kharagpur, obviously the first thing was, so the usual path for anyone from Hyderabad would be you go to this place called Ramaya, which is like the Kota equivalent, the Bansal's equivalent of Hyderabad. And then 90% of us would go to IIT Madras. That used to be the usual path for everyone. And I think I did mess up on the day of the JE. So and I didn't hence get to take the usual path, right? So I ended up taking the uh, like through counseling, went to Kharagpur, and and again, that's where I say, life happens to you, right? And I'm so happy that I didn't go to Madras and I ended up at Kharagpur. But it just changed my perspective of life, right? So when you got into Kharagpur, so here I was, this kid who would get everything on his table, right? So and like, like every it was a king's life, to be honest. So and then you're at Kharagpur, and we I was allotted JCB D block when we just landed. 24-hour train journey. I was very unhappy about not going to Madras. All my friends were going there. There were barely 4-5 people from Ramaya who came to Kharagpur. I think actually not even four. There were only two of us who came from. So the day we landed was raining. Kharagpur is this awesome sweaty place, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
remember, like my handkerchief was full of sweat.
Yeah.
You put it in the pocket and it would leave a big mark there, So, and you're not
Yeah.
habituated to, when you come from places like Hyderabad or Bangalore, you're not habituated to that kind of like
Sweat.
sweat. So then we reached the hostel, and uh, obviously our hostel rooms were like probably 1/4 the size of my room at home, right? So I always had an attached bathroom and blah and blah and blah, AC in the room, all that stuff, right? So and here I was in Kharagpur with I got in, I hung my shirt up only to realize that the wall was whitewashed. So I didn't know this funda of whitewash pe chuna lagta hai, and like it was a very interesting. I thought the first month at Kharagpur, or the first 2 months at Kharagpur were very hard. Very very hard personally, because the first time I was staying in a hostel, the first time, and really from a very luxurious house to a hostel room. I would probably go do that now if I mean, would love to go back to Kharagpur and go back to at least the room I had in RK. But then it was very different, right? So I had this big fear for lizards, and as all of you would remember, like I couldn't get into a room where there was a lizard, right? So I just like this very vital fear of lizards, and all the bathrooms in Kharagpur have their own lizard, right? It's like
Yeah.
they own the place, not you.
And the
Yeah,
big ones.
yeah, big ones, black ones, crazy, right? So it was a very hard transition. I remember I used to be 80, 85 kilos, I think, when I reached Kharagpur. And for DP for Durga Puja, when we came back home, I think I lost like some 25 kilos, right? So in barely 2 months. So the mess food was, I don't think we should talk much about mess food anyways. So
So,
it was an interesting transition. The first 2 months were hard, but once I got adjusted, I thought I really loved the place. Right? So
so
I'd any day to go back to Kharagpur.
the food. So there must be something you still remember from the mess menu. What was your favorite food in the mess?
In the RK, once in a year we used to have this day called Antenpires Day.
Okay.
So it was in memory of one of the earlier mess secretaries, where where everyone sits on the floor and eats. The final year batch serves food, and very simple food. It's khichdi, ghee, a mango ka achar types. The North Indian mango achar, not the South Indian one. Uh, it used to be just phenomenal.
Okay.
So I think, yeah. So mess food wise, I think that one day we would look up to, right? Like the second day was the first time you would do, third and fourth year you would every year look up to that day, the Antenpires Day. I think that's what it's called. But
Okay.
yeah,
Mhm. So,
but otherwise, RK has the best food. At least so we used to believe. But it's still okay. Yeah.
so how did you finally decide that you will stay in KGP? So you still chose to stay in KGP, right?
So the story there is, I think, after the first month, I actually got my parents to courier me all my JE books again. Right, boss, I'm not staying here. Right, but the good piece was, I think the first year wing we had, was a really good set of folks. And there were folks from everywhere, right? There was, I think, I was from Hyderabad. There was one more guy from Hyde. It was both sides of the wing, right? And then we had folks from everywhere. We had folks from like Ranchi. We had folks from Jamshedpur. We had folks from Bangalore. We had folks from Delhi. We had from Kanpur. And the good thing that happened was, I think, as a group we bonded very well. And then luckily for me, there used to be this robotics. You used to take freshers in the first year, unlike a lot of the other societies which take in the second year and stuff. And I luckily got into that. There was this interview type thing, and then they chose some 7 8 guys from the batch, and I was one of the guys who got through. And so the place slowly started building on me. I think by the end of the first semester, I was very comfortable with Kharagpur and life in general, and I think sometime around that is when I said, look, I do want to like prep for JEE and stuff again.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. But again, I've made some of my best friends are still from the wing, from the first year wing that we've had. So yeah, so it probably took me 3 4 months to get into the groove, but after that, I think it was amazing. I keep joking around. I used to joke around that Kharagpur is a land of opportunities.
Yes.
That if you want to do something, there's just so much to do, right? So, like when I look back, when we were kids and we said we want to start an entrepreneurship cell, like okay, go do it, right? So we wanted to get the hall renovated. We went and got it done. So it was just like you just had to want to do something, and things would, kind of fall in place in a place like Kharagpur. So yeah.
So you were quite active at KGP. I mean, both academics as well as social spheres. So you had a patent in your name, a patent in 3D printing, which is now a hot cake. So how were you? And then you founded E-Cell and I think expanded the robotics as well. So how were you able to balance between academics as well as these extracurricular activities?
Right. I think the trick there, Neha, was I earned all my CGPA in the first year, and then I spent it over the next 3 years. Right. So that's a good trick, because the first year is the most loaded, right? The first year is the year when you have most number of courses. Half your course credits of the 4 years happen in the first year,
Yes.
right? So my first sem was 9, my second sem was I think 8.8 or something. So the first year I ended at 8.9. And then when I left KGP, I was at 8.5. So
Okay.
I really ate out of my first year's earnings for the next 3 years. So the deal was, by the time I got into my second year, right, once I got into RK and the second year, I was pretty sure that I wanted to try things out at KGP, right? And that that it was not just going to be more acads and more acads and more acads. So very interestingly, in my second year itself, I went and spoke to I went and met a bunch of profs in the department and picked up a couple of projects that I could do. It wasn't that common for second years to go get some projects, and I was lucky in that sense that Professor P.K. Mishra and Professor Asimawa Roy Chaudhary, both of them, were kind enough to say, okay, like let's see what you've got, and they did try. They did give me some interesting stuff to work on, and it used to be interesting because you would kind of meet them like interestingly, both of them would work from 8 to 10 in the night,
Okay.
right? So you'd actually finish dinner and then you would go like meet them once a week, show them what work you've done, they'd give you more work to do, you'd go back, stuff like that, right? So it was, so the 3D printing thing actually happened with Professor Asimawa Roy Chaudhary. He was doing this fuse deposition modeling thing. and it happened with that. And on the other hand, I also felt that look, I really wanted to try everything that KGP offered in some senses. Research was one side, academics was one. The other side was obviously the people side, right? Like building teams, being uh, part of the fests, etc. I was
Yeah.
anyway part of robotics, which I think I was very lucky to have gotten in the first year itself. Then the usual stuff. I applied for the Spring Fest for Kshitij, as Kshitij was just getting started that year, and didn't get through. Right, so then Arki has a amazing culture for Ilu. Right, I mean, and was very active in the hall in Ilu and stuff. Uh, by my third year, I think when you become heads of robotics and stuff, was when I felt, look, I think we need to scale up robotics. Uh, I mean, it was still evolving. It was unlike the events of today. Robotics used to have only 20 participants in our first year. Between one team from outside and 20-25 participants from inside campus, the whole event was like 30 people, right? So unlike the robotics of now, which is like 200 people, 300 teams and all that mess, right? So got
Now,
my first.
now they have their own fest also. Like they do like various activities in the campus.
Yeah. So it was so scaling robotics was probably the first time I scaled something in life,
Okay.
right? So that third year experience of going from like 25, 30 participants to 300 participants in 1 year and rethinking the whole thing on saying, look, let's go run these events in various campuses. So we actually would go to other campuses, train kids there. We set up this. Craig started a winter workshop. I don't know if we still run it on campus now, but bunch of stuff, right? Very first principles thinking on how do you scale an event like robotics up, and that was the first time really when I tasted something on the management side, right? So then that led to as we were trying to solve this problem of helping people build robots, came the question of saying where do they buy parts from, which is when we said okay, let's set up an hobby kits company, but we
Oh,
didn't know how to set up a company. So that's how the whole idea of setting up E-Cell came from. And
okay.
that's how E-Cell was actually born. It was born with the thing of saying people needed stuff to build robots in robotics, and like so you needed a hobby kits company, and to set up a hobby kits company, you needed an E-Cell, right? So
Oh,
that's really how the E-Cell got founded in 2005. So yeah, so a bunch of stuff. Then in my final year, stood for the second Senate member post. First time I stood for an election, won fairly. Again, in RK, I the deal I had with Kaushik, who was the HP then. I mean, you have two final years, right? So I told Malu, ki, look, you deal with the politics. I will deal with like doing something good in the hall. So we actually got the hall renovated that year. We went to Vinod Gupta, got 60 lakhs from him, and we got the hostel renovated, right? So
wow.
so it was, and it was interesting. It was interesting. Experiences.
Yeah.
Uh, and,
So,
and that's what I like about Kharagpur. So for everyone on the other side, try things out, right? Those 4 years are years when, there is no cost of trying things out. Even if you mess up, even if you fail, it's totally okay,
true.
right? So I think, yeah, those 4 years really helped me discover who I was for myself.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. So you generally say, right? So E-Cell was your first startup, like in KGP, in IIT Kharagpur, like not Capillary. So it was built differently also, Anish. It was not under Gymkhana as other clubs were at that time. So what was your thinking? Like why it was, why, like what made you realize that we need E-Cell at that time? Like, hmm.
As I mentioned, the E-Cell came from a need in the robotics and
Yeah,
the crane
yeah.
side, right?
Mhm.
So the other thing I realized was, I think KGP has a culture of politics, right? I mean, all politics, and you've got fathers in the hall and all that mess, right? So and that's a culture I didn't subscribe to, honestly,
Okay.
right? So when we were setting up the E-Cell, we were pretty sure. Even in robotics was the other team which doesn't have much of hall politics because elections happen in the first year itself, right? So And so when we setting up the E-Cell, it was a no-brainer that we didn't want it another gymkhana, uh, where again you would have a lot of hall politics and you'll have this and that and all that stuff. We instead went with the way of saying, let's follow the money, right? So the most rich organization in the campus would be SRIC, the
Okay.
Sponsored Research Cell, right? So entrepreneurship and sponsored research anyway somewhere go hand in hand, right? So we approached Professor PPC, and Professor PPC used to be the dean of SRIC then, and and he said, yeah, this totally makes sense. We should do it, right? So that's kind of how the ESL came about. And again, in the ESL, we followed the similar view of saying folks come in the first year. It's a very apolitical election process, at least. And it's been good to see the way ESL and robotics have scaled over the last 12,
Yeah.
15 years, right? I mean, I think they've scaled very well.
Yeah, yeah. Anish, you missed an opportunity to do an internship with French company. So that incident must have left a bad taste with you. I mean, it's a dream of every student to do a foreign internship. At least in my times, it was a big deal among students to do a foreign internship. So what happened there? And how did it impact you?
I would say, the first setback for me in life was probably testing up the JEE and going to Kharagpur, which I think in hindsight was a big boon. Right? So I'm very grateful that it took me in that direction. Easy to connect dots backwards, but as that 16-year-old, I would never have connected forward, right? So
Yeah.
uh, this again, so I had a lot of friends in IIT Madras, right? So just given the Hyderabad connection, and IIT Madras had this culture even back then, right, 2004, of having students apply for internships with professors. The third year internship you have, mostly India would be you would go to like companies and do your internship, right? So or you go to a few research centers, BRC, stuff like that. Interestingly, the ITM, they had this process where they would all of them would apply to professors, build a CV, get a small scholarship, and go and work under a prof abroad. And I don't think it was that much of a vogue, or I don't think KGP had that culture back then, right? So KGP, I think you had Microsoft and a couple of companies which would come and give you foreign internships, but this whole you applying and going out wasn't the culture. But so I got these emails and those formats from friends at IIT Madras and started writing to a bunch. And one of these French universities was the École de Centrale at Nice. One of the profs there replied, right? So and confirmed and said, look, there's this much of a scholarship that you'll get, and uh, it was all great. So I had a internship confirmed, I think around probably September, October for the next summers. So I didn't, and hence I didn't sit for the usual, ITCs, HULs, etc. Internships with them. And unluckily for me, a couple of weeks before the break actually started, I got a thing back saying, look, like, sorry, we won't be able to have you this year. Right? So it was obviously when it was a setback, right? So I was really looking forward to it for an internship, fully paid. Very few on campus. Now I'm sure a lot of people on campus get on internships. Back then it was like very, very rare. Right? So and yeah, so I eventually went and worked in a lathe shop at Nuclear Fuel Complex, Hyderabad. So that there was the French internship, and here you were running a lathe in, in the Nuclear Fuel Complex at Hyderabad. So I mean, that's the about life, right? I mean, it kind of uh, gives you all kinds of experiences sometimes. So yeah, so.
So, but you must have told about this internship to your peers, right? To your friends and many batchmates, like not many, but few batchmates must have got a foreign internship, right? So, how did you keep yourself motivated?
So, Neha, I think easier to say now, right? You can always get over stuff like that.
Yeah.
So a few of my batchmates did get. As I said, it wasn't that popular. I found internships in 2003, 4 weren't. In fact, interestingly, in 2005 or 2006, 2005, yeah, 2005, I think I did a session in the Mechanical Engineering Society saying, how do you apply for a foreign internship? And how should your CV look and all that stuff. And I remember Professor Kingshuk Bhattacharya was then the, whatever, the professor in charge of the society. And he was sitting in that session and he got extremely pissed. That how can you actually, say that, look, this is how you build a CV and this is how you apply. It's like cheating professors to like fall into your story. I was like, no, no, but that's how it's done. So how did I get over it? I think, I think, I was back at home. That was one, so I was in Hyderabad and luckily I got an internship in Hyderabad. So keep yourself distracted here. I guess when you're going through a lot of mess, the best way to avoid it is to just like stay busy, right? So, yeah.
Right. Mhm. Let's talk about your startup Kida now, Anish. So, I mean, like we all are aware the various awards that Capillary and you have earned over the years, right from Forbes Under 40 to Red Herring. So, I would like you to tell your initial days of Capillary. So, because for our young Janta, it would be full of learnings. Those golden starting days of startups have like lots of hardship, right? So, please tell us about that.
Right. So I think we started Capillary a couple of years after I joined ITC, and uh, you know like ITC is a great company. It takes very good care of you, but having done a lot of stuff like setting up the E-Cell and doing a bunch of stuff like that in campus, there was always this kid of wanting to do something on your own, right? So and so when we started between Krishna, who's a wingy of mine, Krishna is also the co-founder at E-Cell with me, right? So both of us had done the E-Cell along with a bunch of other friends from campus, um, and so it was just two kids saying, "Look, we want to do something on our own." It was, I think, a love of building a large company that drew us more than unlike in 2008, starting up was not cool, right? So unlike today when starting up is like the in thing, and parents are very supportive, and the whole ecosystem is very supportive. Like 2008, when I said I want to start up, my dad was like, he freaked out. I mean, he was like, "Look, I had an MIT masters call after my after KGP. I chose ITC instead of going to MIT. So he was already like something wrong with this guy.
He's
So
crazy.
it's crazy. And then after a couple of years, I come back and then say, look, I'm going to quit ITC now and uh, start up. And my dad was like, look, he probably thought this was another passing phase. And he said, look, your brother's going to get married in November. Now, after your brother's marriage, you start. I was like, look, brother's marriage and me starting up, like, what's the relationship? It's not like it's not like I want to contribute a penny to his marriage, anyways. And so, right? So, like my back then, ITC now has an incredible mafia in the startup ecosystem. Again, I was the first in the ITC mafia to start up. I remember with Sanjeev Rangras, who was the GM ops then, and my immediate super boss.
Hmm.
Uh, he sat me down for like 2 3 days saying, "What's wrong with you? Like you're moving so fast. You're getting a new role every year, and like and they were very good with me, and they really moved me around at ITC quite well. And I was like, look, what's wrong? Like, why do you want to start up? And it's so good here and stuff like that. He actually made me wait for a full 3 months, serve a 3 month notice period, and then go start up, right? So. And so it wasn't cool, right? So it was really uh, and when we both started, it was this thing of saying, look, we want to do something on our own. So we told our parents, at least I told my parents that, look, give me 6 months. If it doesn't work out, I will go back and give a cat or a GMAT, or I will go abroad, like as you want. But let me do this thing for 6 7 months, right? So my dad obviously didn't say yes. My mom said, look, let him go. Right? So eventually one thing led to another. Luckily, ITC always paid very well, so I had saved up a lot of money. Uh, so that's how Capillary happened, right? So funnily enough, we started in Calcutta. So I was working at Virginia House ITC back then, and Krishna was my co-founder. Was used to be his hometown is Calcutta,
Okay.
right? So we started with Cal. Uh, uh, we in fact our first prototype for the product was built in Kharagpur. So we came back to campus, went back to the same entrepreneurship cell, got a 15 lakh seed loan from the entrepreneurship cell, and hired a bunch of 5 6 good interns from campus, and that's really how our first minimum viable product of the product kind of came out, right? So of what we want to do at Capillary. Um, and luckily for us, look, we started in a recession, right? We started in 2008, which was like, Lehman Brothers tank, the subprime crisis, and all that. And I thought we were very lucky to start in a recession, So, because what happens is, then you can hire great talent. People are willing to do something different. Like I thought, some of the early folks the interns we got at Capillary and the early folks we got at Capillary, are all at a Google or an Amazon or are running their own startups now. A couple of them actually run $1 billion plus companies now. Right?
Wow.
So it was it was amazing. And Capillary hence has also been a lot about culture more than just valuations and a bunch of stuff like that. Right? So uh, yeah, so I would say, you know, if you want to start up, build a good team. Build folks. It's a very up and down journey, right? It's never I keep looking even now that look, no 2 days are similar, right? Even today, like in a week you'll have 3 4 days which you wouldn't have had like thought of, right? So it's good to have a team that understands you, who will, like when you are going through your sine wave, you want someone else to be on the upper side of the sine and not on the lower side of the wave, right? So some of that. So yeah, so that's how Capillary started. We were no one would join us, so it was just very hard to hire people. Uh, and I still remember this very funny incident. One of my other co-founders in the E-Cell, I won't name the guy. I think it was our second year at Capillary, and we offered him a thing saying, "Come and join us. We need someone to head ops for us and stuff."
Okay.
And so he agreed. And exactly a week before joining, he called up saying, "Look, my mom is very unhappy. That I'm going to join a startup. She feels that like in the marriage market, my value would fall. All that stuff." I was like, "Dude, like, what are you telling me?" And he actually didn't join at the end of it. She didn't think about that. So
Okay.
yeah, it was an interesting. The first 3 4 years was a lot of very raw energy. I think we had the time of our lives. The first 4 years was uh, anyone who was getting bored of their corporate jobs, wanted to do something else. We would hunt for people. We were looking for people who were bored like Anish and KK.
Come
And
and
so our
join us.
initial lot of employees was all Oracle, Yahoo, PNG, like best of breed places, and best of campuses as well. Great team. A lot of them, as you would know, Neha, continue to be with us, have continued to, help me build Capillary and build Capillary, right? So, yeah, it's been a great journey.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Anish, it's very important to build a strong foundation in college because you have a plenty of resources there. You have clearly done that. So, for our student listeners, please tell us some practical tool, advice, or action that they can take to build that foundation. Yeah.
So one is, Neha, unfortunately, I think the way education is in India is, all of us are like, go finish your 10th, sit for that, whatever, 2 years of JE prep, go give your JE exam, or whatever you're doing, right? I mean, as medical exam, JE exam. Once you get in, read again, hug again, go get a job, right? So, unfortunately, I think we miss I feel the reason I kind of call KGP the land of opportunities is I think what helped me a lot in those 4 years was I could experiment a lot with myself in Kharagpur,
True.
and that would be my first recommendation to all the students, right? That look, like it's a great place, and even if you get a study at the 8.5, 8, 7.5, 9, you will still get a good job,
Hmm.
right? Your downside is protected in life,
Yes.
right? So to spend those 4 years like getting to know yourselves, right? Or otherwise, Neha, chances are I would be doing a PhD if I would have followed what my mom and dad wanted me to do, right? They wanted me to again become a doctor, but not the this side doctor, but that side doctor, right? So, and I'm very grateful that I didn't do that, right? And think of this, you would really need the amount of conviction I would have needed as a 21-year-old to say no to an MIT and go and join an ITC. Right?
Yeah.
Was the only reason that happened was because I had tried out research and was decent at hackads. I had also tried out building teams. I realized ki, the building teams, the that side of the world is what I enjoyed more than this side. And to
Hmm.
have that level of deep conviction at 21, you really need to experiment with a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my first recommendation or advice would be try things out, and when you try things out, be willing to fail,
Hmm.
right? I mean, you will not succeed in everything you try, right? So, and like the E-Cell and like the stuff that I said which worked, they were like we tried to do this thing in our final year where so Vinod Gupta was doing the said I will pay for renovating the hall, but not the hostel rooms. So we tried to do this thing where we said each alum can fund their own room,
Okay.
which is actually now a program that is happening now, right? After like 15 years, the
Hmm.
institute has launched it. It went nowhere. We spent so much time on that thing, it went nowhere. We said for mess food, we will buy supplies directly from Future Group in Calcutta and get it shipped.
Hmm.
Right? Because quality of food was very poor in campus, right?
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time with the registrar on it. We almost got a yes, but it again went nowhere. So the point of trying things out is like for every one thing that will win, you will have a lot that will fail, right?
Hmm.
So, but I would say so. First is try things out. Second is be willing to fail. Be willing to make a joke of yourselves,
That's
right?
very
So
important.
it's okay, right? So, and the third is look, how much ever we think that it's hard work and it's a lot of planning and it's like a lot of that stuff which takes you ahead in life. Look, life has a plan. We are at best when we are trying to maximize ourselves. As individuals, we are we are playing a local maxima game. While life tends to be a global maxima in a lot of senses, right?
Hmm.
Life tends to be a big global maxima thing. I mean, I'm sure as engineers we all understand what local maximas are and global maximas are, right? So keep your ears open, keep your eyes open to what life is throwing at you. Don't be too rigid. Try things out, and hopefully the dots will connect. As you look backwards.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Anish, and it was wonderful talking to you. And the most inspiring thing is you never chose an easier path. You said yes to IT KGP, said no to MIT, and then no to ITC job. So I think it was you dream it and then you give your 100%. You believe in hustle. So I'm sure this talk will motivate our students also. And thank you again, Anish, like sharing so much funda and so much gyan to our viewers. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks for having me here.